Hey there. Welcome to the Adoption Roadmap podcast, where we talk about navigating the adoption process and beyond. Before we get into the episode, here's a quick word from today's sponsor.
Listen up, Roadmap fans. Do you have a transracial family? Maybe you've struggled to find the right products for your child's hair and skin. You're not alone. But listen, I found your solution. If you're anything like me and care about clean, natural products without harsh chemicals, you've got to check out Sweet Peach Tree. It was founded by a white mom with a black daughter who gets it. They've created safe, effective products made for melanin rich skin and textured hair, but it's not just for them, it's for the entire family. Head to sweetpeachtree.com and use code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweetpeachtree.com. Use the code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweet Peach Tree, made with your family in mind.
Hey there. Before we jump into this episode with Connie going, here's a quick recap of part 1. Last time, Connie shared her journey from caseworker to one of the leading voices in foster care and adoption. We talked about what drew her to this work, the emotional weight of supporting birth and adoptive families, and the behind-the-scenes realities most people never see. Connie also opened up about the moments that shaped her commitment to ethical, child-centered adoption. If you missed it, definitely go back and listen to part 1. But on to part 2. We hope you enjoy the episode.
I think you need to know your history,
Meaning,
know hidden
meaning
secrets.
what?
Like if you have not processed the sexual abuse from your uncle or even
Okay.
told your husband,
If you're holding on to trauma,
holding on to
you're holding
trauma,
on to secrets. Okay.
you need to deal with it. Do not start until you have a place for it. Because, the thing I've learned about trauma for everybody is it never goes away. Now, that sounds horrible, but we find places for it.
Mm.
We store it in our bodies, we compartmentalize it. If you've processed it, it may stay there pretty healthily the rest of your life. Or if you don't, there will be a trigger and you'll be living it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you have to be that type of person who can open it up, see where it connects, and close it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's really, really, really important because we adopt children. Also, the families that I find that adopt children who've been traumatized do have maybe rougher histories.
Okay.
And they encourage you to talk about that. But either some don't, or they talk about it, but they're relating too much to that child and they can't separate it. So you have to kind of always be aware of your feelings every day. You can journal, but finding support. I think the thing with infant adoption and running an agency for 6.5 years is that you want to be perfect in that home study. Like it's almost like there's two home studies, and that's why I'm a fan of bringing them all together. And I say this now working in two programs. One at the agency I'm at now, and building their program, we have an infant program. The people that manage that are, the person that manages that is very much used to finding families for babies.
Mm-hmm.
And they look pretty pristine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as hard. They don't look on paper as hardy. Now, I'm a firm believer we are not all Facebook families, meaning the world is bright and pretty. And look at our first day of school.
Mm-hmm.
But those families tend to think because there's so much competition, they have to look a certain way.
Mm.
If we would take that population and have with the understanding that your birth mother is not pristine and amazing, she's got challenges and she's being open about them. How do you relate to her with those problems? And include those and teach our agencies to match based on some of that.
Yeah.
It would look so different. Because I always say, love the birth mom, understand the birth mother's challenges, and that child will have even a higher level of attachment and nurturing.
I love that. I want to put that on hold for a second. I want to dig deeper into that. But before we do, can you talk a little bit about how you work with birth moms and what your role is with birth moms?
Well, for having a domestic program, we were very, very hands-on. And that
Okay.
was my commitment, that if I was going to do this um, as an agency, even though my background was this, was more of the child welfare, that we were going to embrace our birth mothers. And I don't just mean throw resources at them. I mean, hold their hand and walk through the fire.
Yeah.
I think one of the abilities that some people have are that you meet them and you feel like you can tell them anything, and that you feel like they've experienced what you have. Almost, I think that empathy bond, even if they haven't, they assume you don't judge them. And I think that we really had that with our moms, that we could sit with them and hold their hands. We were there for, it was so hands on. And I just didn't see that happening. I saw, and everyone for their own reasons did it differently in an agency. Some are more transactional. I felt like the moms that we attracted were the moms that had mental health, were the moms that had been in foster care. We had like 5 of those one year. But we were able to impact their life for the long term. And I want to build a relationship. I always welcome friends on my Facebook because it's an open Facebook. You can be a birth mom and be on my Facebook. Once the case is closed, I'm fine.
Okay.
Because I'm going to run into you at the 7-Eleven. I'm going to want to know how you're doing because I truly care.
Yeah.
And I think that it was hard. It was hard because, it's rough to run an agency in I call Florida the Wild West. And there's challenges. There's big agencies with big budgets for marketing. But even more so, I think the way that we do the financials for birth mothers, depending on the agencies, I think it sets up almost as scammers, who and dependency on placing your babies for money. And so that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But I definitely see some challenges there.
Yeah.
And so that was hard for me because I want to help. And we didn't have a lot, but the one we have, I prosecuted. And it was heartbreaking for me to even have to dig through the file and pull all the things out and look at the facts. It was a growth experience. But also it was about vulnerability. The same person who we prosecuted, and she went to prison and is paying restitution, she all went on to scam like 30 agencies in the state of Florida. This was a big one a couple years back. And nobody would prosecute her, even though we have a law. Why? Well, my guess is that being vulnerable and open and having to write and dissect your case is not a fun thing to do, and but I think we have to be willing to do that to learn. And I felt she needed to be held accountable or she'd be doing this again and again and again.
Yeah, it's too bad. And you think that our system, the way it's run, and we won't get too far, is a breeding ground for that?
I think the way that it's handled is. I think that we have, it's like everywhere else, there's good and bad and everything. We have very ethical, agencies. We want to help, but to help, we have to be able to do social work too.
Yes.
So if you're putting them in a hotel, you better be referring them for housing yourself. You better be helping them get on lists, because where are they going to go 6 weeks after the baby's born? So they become dependent upon us.
Yes. What are you trying to instill in these moms when you're working with them?
Self-reliancy and healing. I feel like they are like our adult foster children for some of them.
And what about for adoptive parents or hopeful parents? What are you trying to instill in them?
That if you believe your child is out there, keep open. The more open you are to learning and working through things, the better that will be. And find agencies that match who you are. And I think adoption is also about changing the birth mom's life through a tough time, but long term.
For the caseworker.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it the responsibility of the adoptive parent to help mom heal and grow?
I think their main I think adoptive parents' main responsibility is raising that child and healing and helping that child grow and doing everything that they said they would do before the baby came. Don't break any promises. Some things are contingent based on behavior, but putting that child foremost. But yeah, you should be caring and pray for that mom. And if you're comfortable and have that relationship, direct communication. I don't find birth parents in any form, even my DCF, situations, I don't find them threatening. I'm the mom. I make the decisions. I wanted to get to know them for my boys before I expose them to that. But I think that's full circle. That's healing. Um, you know, um, Taylor's mom, sought me out. She was not clean. He was just come. Um, and so when she was sober, we set up a meeting and we all sat down, and Taylor was old enough. He knew his story. He was 14 or 15. And she owned, first of all, what I needed her to do was to own her challenges. And she owned every bit of them. She sat with him and he listened to her. I was so proud of him. He listened to her. And then she said, she, ended how she had gone to, it was couples like codependent relationship therapy in jail and things like that. And she wasn't with the same man. And he then looked at her, and he has a horrendous history in care and lots of abuse within the system. And he said, okay, now you want to hear what I've been through? And he laid every bit of it on her. And she's a tough cookie, and I'm proud of her. And she handled it. And she didn't reflect or make excuses. I am so sorry. I signed consents to the state because they promised they would keep you and your sisters together, because they promised that they would give you a better life. And that didn't happen for Taylor because his first family put him back in foster care and kept his sisters. And so there's just lots to unfold.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, over the course of time, my family goes up, when I had all the kids here, we drive up. They're about 6 hours away. They're kind of country people. We stayed with them, had bonfires. I talk to her about once every 2 weeks. Taylor is reconnected with his sisters.
Awesome.
He, everybody, you have to have all your pieces to be healthy.
Yeah.
And, but I consider her like my little sister because they don't have a lot of supports. They're totally different than us. But you know what? I accept her where she's at, and I love her, and I've been there for her, and she will say the same thing. I never expected that to come out of this.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Nor does everybody have to be the same way Connie is, right?
Oh God, no.
You don't have, Connie loves to take care of everybody. But okay,
Yeah.
wait, going back. So it's full circle. So now we know kind of how you work with moms, a little bit about what you instill in families. Now, for the parents who come in stating that they are open to adopting children who are older than an infant, are there things that you look for as the caseworker to make sure that they're a good fit that might be different than adopting an infant?
Yes, there are.
Talk to me about those.
I want to look at their reasons. Like, why choose this?
Okay.
What are their reasons? And I've heard everything, but is it about a purpose? Is it about, I want to help a child? I don't need to be a savior, but I feel that I have a lot to offer a child. Is it because they want a playmate for another child? I mean, you have to really dig into those purposes. It's not just infertility. I have a family I'm working with now. I do kind of a hand-holding program, and as they navigate this older child adoption, and they literally can have children. They just never did. And they said, we've thought about adoption our whole life. We feel there are so many kids without parents that need somebody, and we have the time, the energy, and can do this. That's what I look for. But I also look for a family that knows how to structure life, but isn't rigid. The biggest key in adoption to me is being able to flex and turn, because with trauma and older, you don't know how the child that you adopted to is going to be at 6 or 7, or you just don't know. There's so many, and rigidity in parenting, this is how I'm going to do it, takes away from the creative parenting, which you need to find solutions to some of these behaviors because there are no manuals.
Yep.
And what works for one will not work for another. And you could have a couple children in your house that you're using something different on every one of them. So I think that's the biggest thing, is openness, willing to look at themselves, to hear what we're talking about when we talk about trust-based relational concepts in parenting and attachment therapy. And um, they're not just centered about themselves, because they have to be able to step out of themselves for quite a while.
And they also, I would imagine, have to be willing to invite counselors and social workers into their lives to, hey, they can't be the type of people that are so private they won't let anyone into their lives, or else, they
Yes,
need to be.
and and sometimes you have those home studies where people like, well, why do they need to know about that? I'm like, oh, honey, I need to. It's not that I'm being weird, but I kind of need. I need to see your life naked.
Yeah.
I need to see everything, because, and then you explain why. But I think, again, we are still caught up in domestic adoption as present like the white picket fence perfect family. Oh,
Yeah.
look at our profile book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, I need more meat. I need to know. Um, I recently had a family that was looking to adopt a girl, I think ages 8 to 11, moderate behaviors. I think they're a great family. They've raised 2 boys who are like 14 and 15, and they're little superstars. I won't lie. The boys are amazing. And I had them write 2 pages on themselves. And it was like, they had a good page about the boys. I said, oh, no, 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 no. You have to downsize it. I know they're amazing. I said, do they have any issues? He goes, oh yeah, they do this and this and this, and he's dyslexic and this. And I said, you don't have to put this here. That should be in your home study. I said, but you cannot put, because this child will never, the person reading this is going to say their child will never measure up to that. So talk about how the boys are going to connect. Talk about how they're part of the process, and so sometimes it's reframing things for people.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we do podcasts, the more that we talk, the more that we educate, then it makes it out there to the world.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
Yeah.
It's great. Also, I mean, even if you're adopting an infant, when I see an adoption profile that like is perfect, there's not a toy on the floor, there's not anything out of place. I'm like, I always ask, is this really truly the way you live?
Yeah.
Well,
I want to
is
see
it
a little
always that clean? If it is, this is perfect. If it's not, you're kind of presenting a little bit of a lie.
right.
And maybe
You know,
somebody might not be able to connect with you and relate.
and that's so true. And I also think that a birth mother, so imagine, I had this birth mother. It was really interesting. She came in from one of the agencies that does the profile books, and she would only text. They said that she's perfect for you. And I'm like, okay. So I start texting her. 2 weeks later, we're still texting. But what she's telling, and she's very kind of, is embarrassed because she's addicted to heroin, is what she finally tells me. But she's high functioning. So she's got a secret. She got this situation. She knows what she wants to do, but we're just building trust. So we're just texting at 11 o'clock at night and talking. But one of the things, so she says, I saw this book and this is why I called. And this is the family I want. I know I want this family. They are just perfect. And I get the book and I look at it and I'm like, they are like the white picket fence, white. I mean, they're just like apple pie. And I just remember thinking, well, I don't know this family, but I'm going to call their agency and see if they're open to having a child that's been exposed to heroin for 9 months. Not even a hope. And so her and I then began to look deeper and find families that were more hardy. And the family that we found was incredible, and they held her hand through delivery. And they are very compassionate to anything she asks for or needs, and they love her as she is, and they love their son all together. And it was a beautiful, it turned out beautifully.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the way adoption should be, and it isn't always. A lot of the caseworkers and the adoption professionals are not asking the right questions. They're letting, a birth mom pick through pictures and just letting it be instead of digging a little bit deeper. You had mentioned attachment just a little bit ago. Do you think there's a difference in how an adoptive parent should approach attachment and bonding based on age of the
I,
child that they're adopting, whether it's a newborn or
well, I think
older?
it depends on the child.
Okay.
I think with newborns, everything should be about attachment. Every need should be met, because you're minimizing that separation from mom. So No crying it out in the bed. No, I mean, just constant touch, nurture, touch, 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 if changing that diaper, doing whatever, almost over
Mm.
and above, to kind of build that. If you cry, I will answer.
No crying it
So
out in the bed. Okay.
I don't, I'm not saying I haven't let my biological kids do that,
Uh-huh.
but I think for infants, it's just importantly, I mean, I think it's something that we need to do. I just think it's something that we need to look at. There may come a time when sleep, you're doing that sleep method where you sit by the side of the bed and you slowly,
Mm.
that's a little different. They've had their infancy.
Yeah.
But when you work with neglect, what you see are kids that as babies are left in car seats with prop bottles. Their diapers are wet for hours and hours. They get lesions on their bottoms. They learn to, I had someone who went into an orphanage overseas, and they said it was incredible because it was silent. They had 50 babies in cribs. It was silent because they learned to stop asking and crying
Wow.
because they never got answered. That's true neglect.
Mm-hmm.
So when I work with any child, I want to go back to the beginning. So I think that as domestic infant adoption, I think we have to do everything in our power to do that. But with children that have come in foster care, you figure there is some form of neglect. There is, if they do drugs, there's neglect. If they are doing domestic violence, there's neglect. It just goes on. But that is kind of a constant. Depending on the level of that, you actually have to look at children as being younger than their chronological age. For instance, and I use my own as an example.
Okay.
Taylor was 12. Definitely was diagnosed with reactive attachment, meaning they said he could never attach. I didn't really believe that, but he had attachment issues, understandably. I would take him a glass of water before he'd go to sleep. He'd be in his bed, and he would say, I don't need that. I'm a man. You don't need to tuck me in. I said, I tuck all my children in. You're 12, but oh well, because I talked to this. So it's like my little hop around the house. And I had a straw in the cup, and he looked at it. A month later, he'd say, can you hand me that glass? A couple weeks later, he'd say, can you put it up to my lips? I think it was about month 4, I realized I was like bottle feeding him with the straw. I thought, oh my God, I wonder if this is connected. In our pool, pools are great for attachment with older children.
Okay.
Because you're splashing, you're touching. You always have to, if you're playing with someone in the pool, you touch them.
Yeah.
My boys were not touching, especially Davion, but put him in the pool, roughhousing, rolling around. We would do play acting. And I remember it was Taylor. We did this scene from Titanic. And my girls were involved, and we're like, I'm dying. It's done. And lay their head down. And Taylor would be like, he would be doing that part. He'd say, save me. And I'd scoop him up like a baby. He's about 13 then. And I'm holding him. And he's like, oh, I'm like your baby. Think about that. He didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are just moments that if you really stop, you're doing attachment. And so I think for kids that are coming from lack of that, we did building duct tape wallets. That was a thing a while.
Yeah.
But if you're working with duct tape, you are touching the other person because you have to unstick it.
Yeah.
So activities that build connection. Time in, this was hard for me. Time in instead of time out. Child's getting dysregulated.
Yep.
You see it happening. You immediately you close in the ranks. You go over, you touch their shoulder, you start, and then you keep them with you. So it's not a punishment or reward. It's kids want more than anything. Now, kids with attachment disorders may fight being with you because it's harder to feel feelings. But that's what you want to build is I'm here, even when it's your hardest.
I remember with my son, and I didn't know this stuff. Nobody ever told me, but I realized when I put him in timeout, it escalated and he could not calm down. When I sat with him and hugged him really tight in my lap and didn't let go until he calmed down, he calmed down within minutes. Now, sometimes he would fight me hugging him, but I would say, nope, I'm going to hug you and I'm going to hold you until you calm down. And he would say, no. And then his body would relax.
Yep. And in your instinct. So that's when I talk about creative parenting. Is this working? Because, whenever I used to go into homes that had very, very a doctrine through their belief system in church,
Yeah.
usually, of how they would parent. It was kind of the Dobbs philosophy of spare the rod, spoil the child. However, I would just say to them, so how's that working for you? And get them to be real. Is it working? If you're an aware parent, that it's not working.
Yeah.
It may stop the behavior. And I'm not talking about like a toddler touching a stove, and taking their little hand and going like this. What stops you from going like this and holding their hand and then sitting with them? But spanking, using a wooden spoon, all of those things that were done, of course, in the 60s, 70s, 50s, I think,
I
are
was
not
there.
healthy.
I
Oh,
grew
me
up in that
too.
era.
Yep, me too. My mom and I,
The
we
wooden
talk about
spoon.
it now. She's 90. We talk about it. Um, I think for some children, it does not make a difference. You can spank them. That's what happened in Taylor's first adoption. His first family felt that if they kept punishing him, taking things away, well, they took everything away. He was 6.5. They took everything away from him till he was on a mattress in a room. That was it, in the dark for hours. Because you can go to that place. You hear these stories, these horrible, horrible stories and a lot of times it's adopted children. And they'll say, we built a shed for him.
Yeah.
Using a bucket for a bathroom. Like
I
they go to
thought that was
extremes.
only in the movies.
No. It's happening right now in America.
God.
Because if I win the battle of the wills, I'm the parent. You do what I say. They, those things are happening, right? I've been in homes that we've had cases like that. And it's past the point. So why go there? And, is it worth an abuse report? I say that to family. Is this worth? Because what's going to happen is, I'm not saying you are abusive at this point, depending on what it is. But, I remember this is funny. So my biological child, I remember spanking her, not very much, but I used my hand, and she put her hand back there. She was 6 and she played the Suzuki violin. Okay. She's a cute little kid, put her hand back here to cover her butt. And when I hit her, I must have bruised like right here a little bit, like there was a bruise. I didn't know this. And she was fine and life went on. And, I think I popped her like once or twice. I mean, it wasn't abuse. But on the way to school the next morning, I said, where's your violin? Do you have your violin? Because I used to drive her to school. And I can't play today. And I said, well, honey, why can't you play? And she goes, well, my thumb is hurting. And I had a bruise. And I remember I said, we'll just leave the violin in the car. You don't need to go to class today. And I knew I was going to get an abuse report.
Oh, crap.
And I could have explained it, but I would have had a verified finding.
Yikes.
Is it worth it? First of all, is it worth it and does it work? No. Be creative. Step out of those pieces. So
yeah.
I think any type of adoption is happening. We have to find families that have that creativity and flexibility.
I love it. What's an intervention case?
Intervention case is where an agency has to be, or an attorney goes into the dependency system. You have a child that's been sheltered and they have not terminated the rights or announced that they have terminated the rights. And this is only in Florida. I like this option. I don't think we use it enough or show it enough or tell parents about it. So I'm a parent, I'm on drugs, blah, blah, blah. But they shelter my child.
Meaning when you say shelter, like in a foster home or?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You've gone to court. The judge says, okay, we are removing them.
Okay.
Here's your plan you need to do. You have 6 months, 12 months to do it.
Okay.
If you don't do it, we're going to terminate your rights. That can go on for a while. Those cases, those parents in Florida have the ability to call a private entity, an agency or an attorney, and say, I would like to place my child with you.
Okay.
At that point, they can consent to us. We have to let the courts know. Something that my agency does is we try to find out a little bit more. It's very hard. We try to find out a little bit more. Are both parents willing to consent? What's the situation with dad? And also, are they in a home for a long time that they're attached to that would like to adopt them, because I'm not touching that case.
Okay.
I don't want to cause more trauma.
Yeah.
Not everybody thinks that way, but I think it's really important to look at the whole case, assess it, and then you can actually it's a process. Legally, mom will sign consents to the to the entity. You then petition the courts. You have to have an approved family, though. You can't just do it and say we'll take them. You have to have an approved family ready to make placement.
Who even brings this up? Who even
birth parents? I've gotten calls from birth parents who know. I try to get the word out because I feel like there are some birth parents, maybe it's their third child, going into foster care. Here goes another one.
Yeah.
They still haven't done anything. And I want to be real with them. I said, you can step up and empower yourself to make a decision. Okay. And you can choose the family. I don't know how many we'll have depending on your child's needs, but let's see what we have. And so that you're not just a victim. I find a lot of families that have lost children in foster care and have their rights terminated. They want to know their child, that they fought for them at the end. Not, if you do your case plan, you can get your children back. But sometimes the problems are just too big. And it gives them, it empowers them. It gives them a chance to step into that space where I have a say. You don't have a say. Once your children are in foster care, you have no say. I mean, very little say. You can say, don't pierce their ears or cut their hair unless I say yes.
Okay.
But really, nobody can, they're not in your custody.
How long do these cases typically take?
It can be, it's longer than just an infant adoption. It is definitely, I'm saying we're finishing one that's at a year.
Why does it take that long?
All the dependency pieces that we have to go through. You have to, and if you have multiple dads, so it's a lot more legal work, which is why people don't always do it. But to me, if that birth mother or that biological mother has come to me and said, I want to do this, I will do everything in my power to make it happen. Some have worked, some haven't. Bless this woman's heart. I had a mom that I was working with. She was in jail. She was in for a while, the local jail, but she was mental health, and she was on her meds. She's schizophrenic and off her meds. So the dad calls me because he's in prison for a long time, and he says, this is my last child. I don't want them to lose touch with them. I've talked to her. She's agreed to sign. I want this to happen. Please help us. Okay. So he's on board. He's pretty stable, just doing some time, right? Quite a bit of time. She is great the day I talked to her. 3 weeks later, we've got everything lined up. All of a sudden she goes off for meds. And they can't make you take meds in jail. She needs to be in a mental health hospital, but that's not what happens to these women and men. And she is totally delusional, and we cannot get her to give us permission to even do consents. We could not take consents. And that child remained in foster care. She still calls me thinking I have her child sometimes, and we talk about it. And it's very sad to me, though.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a really great, open, healthy, wonderful situation for this child.
Is there any reason, if a mom is consenting, that a judge wouldn't let it go through?
Yeah. They could decide, depends on the relationship of the entity with that judge, if they have a good reputation or a fair reputation. I think it depends on the competency of the parents. I think mostly what they don't like to do is rip them out of, they will never rip them out of a relative placement for this.
Okay.
And they will not rip them out of if they've been in a foster home a long, long time. And I would hope that agencies wouldn't take those cases.
Yeah, or that the foster family would adopt them.
Mm-hmm. And I would hope the agencies that are taking older children understand all the things that go with doing a full history, disclosure, finding the right parent, because it is a different way to match families.
Yeah.
And we've actually come on board and done, we've had agencies call me and say, can you help me? This intervention placement fell apart. And I said, absolutely. And the kids had very special needs.
Yeah, we've had a couple of really successful ones, and I think it's such an amazing program.
It's a great concept.
Now, along with that and with older children, I've heard of federal subsidies. What's a federal subsidy reviewer?
Okay.
And what's meant by federal adoption assistance?
Okay. So the federal government says that if you meet certain criteria in every state, I believe it's every state,
Mm-hmm.
you are allowed to get a stipend and Medicaid. So, and it usually is put into a package under the 4E. So when you adopt older children,
Older children only.
or,
Well,
or they have a special need, so it goes like this.
Okay.
And then I have a caveat for Florida families.
Okay.
Number one, if they're on Social Security disability, automatically you will get it. And that's private. Okay. When you are in foster care, you will always get it if you adopt from foster care. Off the board. Some states throw in additional incentives, like Florida throws in free college tuition.
Oh, wow.
For foster adoption only.
Holy cow.
Okay. But then
There's an incentive.
oh yeah, well, it is like you would get a stipend, you would get Medicaid. If you think about that, that's wonderful. And you would get college tuition paid. And $1,000 towards your finalization, like non-recurring costs for finalization.
Okay.
That usually goes to the attorney. So that's the state of Florida. But overall, the main thing is always, if you qualify, you will get the stipend, which could be anywhere from $500 to $900 a month, depending on the state. That also goes with the child's needs. If they are autistic or this or that, then that you can get more. And you can ask for an increasement as time goes by. Like, say your child is not autistic, but at age 9, they're diagnosed. You can come back and get an enhancement to that subsidy. It's a battle, but it's worth it.
Okay.
Okay, so that across the board happens. In foster care adoption, automatically. In private adoption, we have to meet certain requirements. Most states require that if you have a child that is SSDI, meaning disability, so they're born premature, they're blind, or they have a handicap, or they're older and they have strong like autism or something like that, you qualify. But the category looks like this on paper: age 8 or above, part of a sibling group intact. So if you adopt 2 siblings at once privately. If you have medical issues that are enough to meet disability requirements, because not everybody has it, or enough emotional and mental health, you would get it. Or, this is the big one, if you are part of a race that is overly represented within the foster care system.
What?
Yeah. So, Florida took that.
Is that
Yes.
black or is that white? I don't even know.
This is interesting. So federally, if we are doing a private adoption, we have to make sure the child has Social Security disability privately. This is private. So separate foster over here. You always get it. Okay. Now we're in the private world. In the private world, you have to qualify for Social Security disability, which is, if you have any of those, it's going to come. However, Florida a year ago opened their doors up. I don't know where the money's coming from, but what they opened it up to were all those categories if you were adopting privately. So I spent years helping private agencies, just as like a consultant, get Social Security disability for their infants. Say they were, because so many are drug exposed, premature, and it's the condition they are at when you apply. So don't wait to apply if you are adopting a child that is premature with lots and lots of issues. You should at least apply. Make sure your agency applies.
The agency has to apply for you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not hard. They should do it. If they're in the NICU, it should be happening right then and there. If they're extended, say you're looking at a month or more, yes.
And you must ask because they won't all offer.
No. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And they'll have you sign a disclosure they told you about it. But I think parents need to know this. Like, everyone needs to know this. In Florida, there's a caveat, though. They added all those things I told you about outside, like say they don't have SSDI, but they are over the age of 8, or they have mental health, or they have medical, but no SSDI, I can still get them subsidy, or anybody can. It has to come from an agency, though, not an attorney. An agency has to do it. But they added they also threw in the category of the race that's overly represented, is how they worded it. And that right now we are testing Hispanic, but it's usually always meant African American.
Huh. I'm
Um,
surprised at Hispanic.
I am too, but we got the response from DCF, and that one's we're working on it right now.
Okay.
And there's one more caveat I forgot to say, that if you were adopted previously through the state, but now you're doing a private adoption, like so a replacement, and we show that you had the subsidy before, you automatically get subsidy. Not even a question.
And by the way, with talking about race, with private adoption, the majority of moms placing a baby is white. People
Yes.
think it's black, and that's not true. It's always been white.
I get asked that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is such a great culture issue to talk about, and also to define what biracial really is.
Yeah.
You know, I struggle with families that say we're open to biracial, and then I get down to the nitty gritty and they go, well, Asian and white. I said, well, logically that sounds right, but we're going to put Asian and white.
Yeah.
Because biracial is normally associated with being part African American.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that we even use the word part, because in my world, if you are, you are. We shouldn't have to say you're half this and half that, or,
Yeah.
it's the same thing for Native American.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast episode too, because I love how you counsel people around race and really dig in with them. But if, you can work with Connie if you're interested in that. You adopted two older boys who had a lot of trauma. We talked about all of that. I know that's not easy to navigate. You talked about that. What could that look like for families? You talked a little bit about kicking in the door, but what are some of when kids come in with trauma, what could that look like? Give us some other things of ways that could look. And how do you take care of yourself? How can parents take care of themselves when parenting a child affected by severe trauma?
I'm going to save that part for the last. Okay. And I'm not an expert at it, but I definitely know. I would say the things that first of all, you have to define, like with your home study writer, when they're writing this home study, is a child without a lot of needs what you want? Or do you just want a baby, but you want to adopt from foster care, or you want, you really want that, but you'll accept this? That's the problem. So you need to get that out of the way. But I think that for families who look at what you could handle, you need to hear real scenarios. You need to be in groups that have other adoptive families, and you need to never say that will never happen to me. Be prepared for anything. Mm-hmm. And then think about it, because anything can happen, even with biological children. Of course, we don't want those things to happen, but those behaviors could come out. Mental health can come out anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's all important to realize. But I think that they should be prepared for really putting that child first, meeting their needs at 110%, and to have the support system to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think that is really, really, really important. I think that, so expect behaviors, expect challenges where you won't have the answers. So build your toolbox up. Toolboxes come from other families.
Yeah.
I think that's super, super important. As far as taking care of yourself, I kind of sucked at that while I was actually adopting, so I can tell you how not to do it. And I apologize for the bings, but I have somebody in labor.
Oh.
I don't even do that part anymore.
We'll wind up very quickly.
But I would say to take care of yourself is to know yourself, to make sure you have quiet, reflective moments each day, no matter where they're at. It could be in the car, driving to drop off. It can be before you lay down at night. That's a big time for me. I have mine in the shower. Obviously, that's where God talks to me, in the shower. I don't know how to tell people that, but that's kind of, this is going to sound, my hair, I diffuse it. When I diffuse my hair, I can't do anything else. Because you know how we like to multitask.
Uh-huh.
I can only hold the diffuser under my hair. I can't hear the music in my room and, or anybody. And I use it kind of in my deep thought process.
Yes.
I think time to meditate and have your quiet time. First of all, if you are not doing that, you are not centered. And when you're not centered, you cannot care for anybody. I would say do see your doctors regularly. After 8 years of parenting my house in trauma, my body fell apart. I went to the doctor and I had like shoulders and knees and hips, all these things came out. I was not healthy. Of course I had gained weight. Of course I had, it takes thought for that.
Yeah.
And so you had to really hit me over the head hard to get me to get that. I have a massage like once a month.
Yeah.
I was doing my nails. I mean, I think of anything and everything. I'm still not there.
Yeah.
Because I still have people around me, I keep thinking, but don't wait for one day. I recently was in the hospital. I had a heart episode, which my heart's fine, but I think it was, anxiety, stress, all those things. And I had this conversation with myself and, God, and I thought I could die. And I'm not done. That's all I could say was to myself, I'm not done. I'm not done. I have more to do. And I think about how much I do for everyone else. And the message from that was, you better be doing something for yourself.
I mean, that's a message every person in the world needs, especially women, to hear.
Yes.
Especially
And also, Rebecca, you should look at your relationships that are quality. Don't waste your time on things that aren't.
Amen.
We go down these rabbit holes, family, friends, other people. When you're a giver, takers take. And I think that finding that balance and saying no is a learned skill, and we have to do it more. I'm a work in progress, so.
We all are. What do our kids need from us as new adoptive parents the most?
Consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency and unconditionalness. No matter what. I've told my boys since day one, you know what? I am not going anywhere. And they're like, sure, we've heard that before.
Yep.
And I said, well, time will tell. And I said, if I have to visit you in jail, if I have to visit you at college, it doesn't matter. I mean, I want you to do your best. I want you to have a good life. And be careful what you say, because sometimes it comes true. But you know what? Again, unconditional. Yeah. Unconditional, no matter what.
You are an amazing model of that. And Connie, you've given us so many golden nuggets today. I knew you would. Before I let you go, though, I have 4 rapid fire questions that I ask everyone. The first one is a shout out to one person or organization that's influenced your adoption journey or the work you're doing in adoption.
I would say that oh, that's a hard one. Oh, that's so hard. I'm so sorry. It's rapid fire. I'm supposed to do the first thing. You know how I think of an advocate, and she's not an adoptive parent. Well, she sort of was. She's about 15 years older than me. Her name is Maureen Flatley, and she's an advocate in Washington. She passed many of our laws, and I love her life. I love what she's done for the world in going, just how she lives it and how she helps the bigger picture, because we always see the world in front of us, but the world is so much bigger. And how do we make those changes?
I love it. What's one piece of advice you would like to share with adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents?
Don't be so hard on yourself.
What's one thing you wish every adoptive parent knew before they brought their child home?
That it's not about them.
Describe adoption in 3 words.
The best life.
Adoption is not just a destination, it's a journey filled with love, resilience, and growth. Wherever you are on this roadmap, trust in your path, stay open to learning, and always lead with your heart. You already have everything you need to create a beautiful story for your family, and when the road takes unexpected detours, I'm here to help you navigate every turn along the adoption roadmap. Thank you so much, Connie, for being here today. Love ya. Bye.
Love you too.
All right, friends, that's a wrap for today's episode. What was your biggest takeaway today? If you found this conversation valuable, inspiring, or even just entertaining, I'd love for you to leave a 5-star rating and review. That's how more people find this show and how we spread education and support across the adoption community. Hit follow, leave a 5-star rating, and share this with someone who could use it. We drop a new episode every Wednesday morning. Catch you next time on the Adoption Roadmap Podcast. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.